matter if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve post-game show starts now.
Good evening, Winnipeg. Good evening, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this evening on our YouTube channel and all of our social media outlets, we say good evening, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve post-game show. With Dave Manouk, with Ezra Ginsburg, I am your host, Drew Mandel. Pleased for all of you to have joined us on this Tuesday evening after the Winnipeg Jets defeated the Dallas Stars by a 4-3 margin, the victory coming in a shootout when the Jets had the game firmly in hand for the bulk of the regulation time of the contest. Nonetheless, the game does go to the shootout. The Jets take the victory in the shootout, winning the shootout 2-1, winning the game 4-3, and improving to 5-2-2 on the season. And if my math is correct, gentlemen, that would make it 7 consecutive games for the Winnipeg Jets with points now after they started the year 0-2 prior to getting the overtime loss in Minnesota. So the Winnipeg Jets racking up the points. They would have liked it to have been in regulation, gentlemen. It wasn't, but a win is a win, and right now they'll take the 2 points.
Yeah, Drew, this game seemed like an early season game, right? Like I realize we're 9 games in here. We're not like 2 or 3 games in, but sometimes you just have to take the ugly win. I agree with you 100%. I mean, it looked like, the Jets were completely in control going into the second intermission. Like, let's be honest, guys, the ice was completely tilted. Like the Stars looked absolutely awful. Alliteration aside in that second period. And then the third period, obviously, they make their push, and both of those goals were fairly ugly. Like, give John Klingberg credit. I mean, Eric Comrie, at least from my vantage point watching it at home, I mean, it looks like he either completely didn't see it or he didn't see much of it. But, the goal that was scored by Jason Robertson, I mean, that goal was, Jason Dickinson. I mean, how many whacks do you need at the puck, right? Like, it was just one of those.
It was Robertson for the record.
Pardon me, Robertson. I don't know why I was thinking Jason Dickinson, but Robertson, really good player, almost a point a game player last year in his rookie year. But, give Dallas credit. They fought hard. And, just good. I know we're going to get into, the goals and everything like that, but, just great for Eric Comrie, right? Because he knew that Hellebuck, his wife was going to give birth, at any moment. So he knew that there was a chance that he might start this game, but he didn't know up until, I believe, within the last 24 hours here. And, in the second period, I thought, even though he didn't face a lot of shots, there were a couple of odd man rushes, if you guys remember, and Radulov was one that stood out to me. So he didn't have to make that many saves, but he made a couple of pretty key saves, and obviously, the goal that got called back, Rupe Hintz, that could have easily been the TSN turning point if Dallas didn't come back and tie it up. So yeah, it was a little ugly here. But what stands out to me is Comrie coming into a situation where you probably didn't expect him to start this game, picks up a win, and Pierre-Luc Dubois continues to be absolutely dominant. And the Jets, with the exception of that third period, were by far the better team for the majority of tonight's game.
Yeah, and that's just, I think it's not especially complicated. In the third period, Dave, the Jets sat back too much, and it's always a chicken or the egg argument. And what do you do? Are you do you keep being aggressive, or do you play more passively? The Jets elected to play more passively, particularly I would say in the latter half of the third period, and it ended up costing them in that Dallas was able to score. If you're too passive, teams in the NHL are likely going to capitalize on their opportunities eventually. And, the power play opportunity was what sort of was the catalyst for the Stars to cut the lead in 1-1. And then they were able to tie it up. A beautiful goal there by Heiskanen. Pardon me, Klingberg, who dances on the blue line and sort of embarrasses Jansen Arkins a little bit. You're on mute, Dave. But that's what ends up sending the game into overtime. The Jets probably, in hindsight, should have been a little bit more aggressive, or should have played the third period, more of the fashion that they played the first two, and it probably doesn't go to overtime. But that's maybe a lesson learned for future for this Winnipeg Jets team that ends up still getting the 2 points tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of those things that you look at the game and you think to yourself, okay, it's a 1-all game. They take that 2-1 lead, and then suddenly it's 2-all. But is it? Then they kind of, they get lucky. Good video coach to make that call saying it was offside. I'm assuming it was a video coach and not obviously one of the coaches on the bench. It could have been them, but the reality is likely the
Matt Prefontaine, probably.
yeah,
the video
probably
coach.
Matt Prefontaine made that call, and so you get a little life. You got quickly scored thereafter to make it 3-1. And the Jets didn't really take the foot off the gas in the second period. I mean, there were a lot of, Ehlers had a chance. There were a lot of chances in a period that traditionally hasn't been the Jets' best. They outshot them at one point. I think it was like 16-2 in the period. I think it ended up balancing out a little bit more. I think it ended up being like 16-7 in the second. But the Jets, I thought, played a really good second period. And I agree with Ezzy. You got to give credit to Eric Comrie. I thought he played a really good game. I thought, he makes the first save, makes the second save, makes the third save. You're asking a lot to ask the guy to make the fourth save, and even on the Ben goal, I mean, there's nobody around him. Like, he gets deked out, of course, but where's the defenseman?
Well, that's just a blown coverage. I mean, I think, if you look at the video, it probably looks like it was Neil Pionk's responsibility to be with Jamie Benn there. That was in the first period, of course. And I'm not sure what happened there, because you don't see. There's two things about that play that surprised me. One, you don't see a goal scorer of Jamie Benn's ilk left alone like that. And two, I was shocked to find out that's Jamie Benn's first goal of the year. I mean, that in and of itself is pretty surprising, because this is a guy who used to be, known as one of the better goal scorers, in the entire NHL. Obviously, the offense has dried up for him as of late. But, clearly you don't leave Jamie Benn. You don't leave anybody in the NHL that alone and expect good things to happen on a regular basis.
Right. And you can imagine guys like the Jets coaching staff and those players, they know that's like one of those goals that is going to be brought up the next day in the video room, right? And you're right, Drew. I mean, you don't leave anybody, even if it's, the worst player, even if it's the sixth defenseman or, the 12th forward, you don't leave anybody like that. But that to me was, I imagine people are going to break it down, even further. But I mean, Pionk, just goes to the same man that Brendan Dillon had. I forget who was in the corner. And then Adam Lowry won the faceoff. So it's kind of his responsibility to take Ben. I mean, somebody had to pick him up. As soon as you have two defensemen in the corner and you have Ben in front of the net, I mean, somebody's got to go to him, and nobody went to him. So that was a pretty easy goal for Ben. As you mentioned, his first of the year. We're used to him having more goals by this time of the season. But, there were some definite, miscues in their own zone. I mean, we talked about, the second and third goals. I mean, the third goal, good on Klingberg for doing that little, dance at the blue line, and then Comrie is screened. But, the second goal, say whatever you want, it was a power play goal. But the Jets, I mean, that just wasn't, it was a whole lot of whacking in front of the net there. Yeah. And, Comrie made a few saves. So that one was an ugly one. But look at, I mean, Dallas is obviously, it's incredible, guys, that they've scored the second least goals in the entire league. I mean, we knew they were not going to be a top offensive team. We talked about that, before the season, and we talked about that on the Saturday morning show. Like, this is a good defensive team. And, we got to give a shout out to Braden Holtby here. Like, Braden Holtby came into this game with a .926 save percentage, and he was the only reason that was a 2-goal game in the second period. I agree with you, Drew. Like, this is one of those games, like, you thought the Jets were in complete control and there was no chance. But when you have a team that, still has, guys like Ben and Seguin and Radulov, there's always a chance, if you get that, the second goal to make it a 1-goal game, you kind of got the feeling that, Dallas might tie that game up. It worked out okay because the Jets got the extra point in the shootout. But can we also talk about that overtime, boys? Like, that overtime
was one-sided,
completely one-sided.
Yeah, that was one-sided.
And Dave and I were watching the game here because Dave came back from Canada Life Center after 2 periods. Like, is there a more dangerous player at 3-on-3 than Kyle Connor? Like, it's unbelievable. He was just flying around out there. He missed the net. He got the puck back. Like, it's almost like, he can do whatever he wants with all that extra ice out there with 4 less players out there, right? So I thought the Jets were really impressive in overtime. And, Pierre-Luc Dubois had a good, chance there. And as soon as it goes to the shootout, you basically, flip a coin. But I thought, the Jets responded really well in that overtime period after, obviously things didn't go their way in the third period.
Yeah, I mean, he was, he was certainly noticeable. I mean, the game started with the Connor, Dubois, Svechnikov line, really just keeping the puck on their stick in the star zone for that first shift of the entire game. And that was sort of, I thought, a theme for that line a lot tonight, is that, Dubois and Connor, were men against boys in some regards. Now, it doesn't translate overwhelmingly onto the score sheet, but I mean, you saw Pierre-Luc Dubois control the game when he had the opportunity to do so. I thought, Dave, that he was, especially early in that first period and that second period, those guys were imposing their will on the Dallas Stars. And it's not like the Stars defense is a poor defense. They have some pretty decent talent on that blue line, but they just seemed like they couldn't figure out how to handle the combination of the size of Dubois and the speed of Connor. And that's certainly what makes that line so dangerous. And as I mentioned, I mean, Dubois obviously gets the power play goal, and it's certainly not the prettiest power play goal.
It wasn't a highlight reel. No,
it wasn't a highlight reel, but it counts nonetheless. But just, they set the tone, I thought, for the game in that first period on that first shift. And for a Winnipeg Jets team that has really been playing catch up a lot, especially during the road trip through California, a lot of those games were comebacks, to be able to have a tone-setting shift to start, I thought was important and impressive for that line.
Yeah, and we talked about it on the Saturday show. I mean, which Saturday show, of course, you could ask, but it was, I think, the Saturday morning show.
Was it the morning show or the post-game show?
No, it was the morning show. And I think we've seen Kyle Connor and Pierre-Luc Dubois put this team on their back, and they can't do everything, but they've done a lot, and they really have taken their games. It feels like they've taken their games to another level. And, you're right. I mean, that goal is not a goal that you're going to, say, well, that was such a special goal. I made, I did this, and this. But the reality is he was doing the right things. He went to the dirty area in front of the net, and the puck goes in. And the truth is, what does he have now? 7 goals in 9 games.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
He had 8 and 41 last year. And I was joking around with people on Twitter saying, like, he had his career high was 27. At what point do you think he'll get that? Because it seems to me that he's
on pace.
Well, he's on pace for a lot more than that in theory, but this, will he be able to maintain this? We'll see. But he really does look like a man who's engaged. And I think that is the physicality.
Oh, congratulations, Pierre-Luc.
Why?
He said he was engaged.
I'm like looking for someone named Pierre-Luc in the chat. I should have known better.
Come on, Dave. I always provide the levity. You know that.
That is a good point. I should have known better, but I was focused. I was focused on making a point. But no, I think it really is just evident to me, at least, that he's I mean, not just to me. I think everybody would acknowledge it. He's just a different player. And that's what the Jets needed him to be. And some people said, I remember we were talking about this the other day. It might have been on the postgame show with Ezzy and I agree with Rusty. Everybody smash the like button. Even if you don't like Pierre-Luc Dubois, which I can't say you wouldn't at this point, smash that like button regardless. But the truth is, some people are like, well, it's a contract year. He's playing. No, I mean, the truth is, last year seems to be the outlier. This year seems to be.
Hold on a second, though, Dave. I agree with you, but even if it is because of that, who cares?
For sure.
He's playing really well. And yes, of course, he is in a contract year. So, what do you want him to play poorly? Like, what are we talking about here?
Well, I guess you're saying maybe you want to dial it back. Maybe don't score 80 goals this year.
The Jets will be glad to pay him whatever he needs.
We don't want to necessarily pay him. We don't necessarily want to hit that double digit on this next contract. But no, I mean, look, you traded for a power forward center. What does Pierre-Luc Dubois look like this year? He's a power forward center who's doing things with the puck and with guys hanging off his back. Like, it's not just he gets open, he finds, like, he has literally got guys hanging on his back and he's making plays. And that is what I think everybody that is a Jets fan who is analysis, provides analysis of this Jets team is looking for from Pierre-Luc Dubois, especially because, remember, I mean, we don't watch Columbus.
Exactly, C-Mac. C-Mac knows what's up.
No, and look, but I mean, yeah, exactly. I agree with C-Mac on that one. Sorry, I had to look down. But the truth is, we didn't know what to expect from him. We had heard reports. Nobody watched Columbus and Winnipeg to any great degree. So the truth was, you didn't know what kind of player you were getting. And then you saw last year, but this is a complete turnaround. And again, like I said, 9 games in, but we kind of said at the 10-game mark, you're kind of getting that barometer as to what kind of players you're getting. Kyle Connor, Pierre-Luc Dubois have taken their games to the next level. Kyle Connor in overtime, by the way, I mean, it was like he hadn't just played a 60-minute hockey game. He looked like he looked fresher in overtime than he did throughout the course of the game.
I mean, as he said
sorry, Drew, I just checked the box score. Connor, I can't believe that he wasn't even credited with a shot on goal in tonight's game. He was one of the Jets' best forwards.
Well, that is hard to believe. I mean, he certainly had a number of what I would describe as scoring opportunities that he may have whistled just wide or had deflected wide. But I mean, to your point, Ezzy, I mean, I think you said it that, he in overtime, he took a puck, he came in, he wired a shot and went wide out of the own zone. And he was the first guy to go skate back and get it. I mean, the Dallas Stars looked like they were skating in quicksand compared to how Kyle Connor was moving in that overtime. I think it was at least the first 2.5 minutes before the Dallas Stars were able to get possession, in the overtime period. And, they were, I think, very lucky and very happy to have it go to the coin flip that frequently is the shootout. And I think that really is probably why the Jets have a bit of a sour taste in their mouth, despite getting a victory in tonight's contest. At least I assume they might have a bit of a sour taste in that they gave up a divisional opponent 1 point when the Jets really firmly had this game in hand. And that's why I think it's, you don't love giving the Stars the point, but I think you can use it as a learning opportunity for how you need to sort of put your foot down, and you need to keep your foot down. I think our buddy Scotty Billick tweeted it. The first 40 minutes of this game, the Jets, had their foot on the accelerator the entire time, and Dallas had no answers for them.
It looked like a Stanley Cup contender, Drew, playing a bottom feeding team. Like the way Dallas especially played in the second period, I agree with you. It looks like a team that's kind of a little bit lost out there. Like we talked about it, like they're not scoring a lot of goals. When you've got guys like, Miro Heiskanen and John Klingberg on the back end, Ryan Suter is on the back nine of his career. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he's still Ryan Suter. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, Suter is still a really good defenseman. I would take him on my team any day of the week. So when you have Suter, Heiskanen, and Klingberg on the back end, I mean, it's a good defensive team, but I mean, they just don't look like a cohesive team. Like, sure, they tied up the game in the third period on a greasy, goal to start it off, and then Klingberg's goal. But Braden Holtby, to me, was the reason why they were even able to come back and tie that game. So I think, Drew, the Jets, in that locker room would be a lot more pissed off if they lost the shootout point. But at the end of the day, I mean, getting that shootout point was huge. And obviously, it's just a storybook, ending that Scheifele, gets it in his first game back. And I can't believe, guys, we haven't even got into those lines yet because, what's going to happen, on Friday and Saturday. I know a lot of people, want those lines to stay together, but I don't necessarily know that, the Scheifele, Wheeler, Lowry line is going to stay together. I mean, the only certainty is obviously Connor, Dubois, and Svechnikov, but it's going to be really interesting to see, what Paul Maurice is going to do here, in these back-to-back games, because I do think you have to kind of figure out what you're going to do with that third line. They were good, but I don't necessarily know you're going to keep that line together for Friday.
Well, that's what I was going to. Set me up for this, and before we talk about the forward lines for the Winnipeg Jets and the power play units, which of course had a new look to them as well, we're going to say good evening to everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is the Illegal Curve post game show. We're live YouTube channel. We're live on all of our social media platforms. In case you haven't joined us before, in case you're new here, in case you haven't yet purchased it, brand new Illegal Curve merchandise is now available. Visit iclockerroom.logoshop.com to get your hands on some great Illegal Curve gear. Dave is sporting the IC hat right now. Again, you can also find the link to our locker room through our website, illegalcurve.com. Hit the merchandise button, and you will be able to buy some of our brand new Illegal Curve merchandise. All orders placed before November the 6th, which is coming up on Saturday, will be delivered this month. So be sure to get your orders in by Saturday. You can even do some early holiday shopping for the Illegal Curve fan in your family. Do that now. Don't miss out. iclockerroom.logoshop.com. Through our website, illegalcurve.com as well, to get your IC gear that is now on sale. And of course, if you haven't also done so, smash that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, get alerted each and every time we go live here with the Illegal Curve post-game show, or Saturday morning with the Illegal Curve hockey show. So let's get into the lines for tonight's game.
Hold on, Drew, before you get into the lines, before you get into lines,
Yeah.
we got to talk about, some people are talking about the life. I will say there was some life in the building when our buddy from Ottawa, Cameron Cheers, aka Cameron Hughes, got things going. You guys probably didn't see it because it was during a commercial break, but Cameron was he's the guy who does the cheers. He does it all across the league. He's hilarious. He was getting the crowd pretty going. I mean, it was during commercial timeout, so people at home don't see it. You had to be in the building to appreciate it. But he's always a good sport. He was messaging me because I took a video, so he wanted to. But it's kind of, I just want to bring it up because it's kind of a sign of normality. Seeing him ripping the t-shirt off and then take off another shirt and dancing and throwing it to the crowd, it gets people going, gets people excited. So it was just kind of a nice sign to see kind of that return to normality a little bit, to see him back in the building doing his thing.
Well, thank God, because we couldn't have done another year without fans. Like, could we?
No,
I really don't think we could have done another year without fans. Like, watching hockey without fans, hopefully we never have to go through that again. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I was going to say, Dave, the highlight of my weekend was the tweet that you sent out where you ran into our buddy Dancing Gabe on Sunday at the Moose game.
That was awesome.
And of course, anytime we have an opportunity to see Gabe, that's always great. And then he asked about Ezzy and I as well. And he mentioned that we're all going to be getting Christmas cards from him as we do each and every year. And that certainly is one of the highlights of my year. So I wanted to make a note about that, because that was terrific to see on the weekend.
Gabe is a beauty.
It was funny because I didn't recognize him because he's wearing a giant Batman costume. So I was walking, I'm walking in I just come through security. I was walking through the concourse to go to the elevators, and he saw me and he approached me, and I was kind of like, I'm like, okay, a person in a Batman costume is approaching me, and he said, "Hi, Dave." And then I realized
you were dressed as Robin, Dave. That's why he came up to you.
Yes,
you were
that
dressed
is true.
as Robin. So
that is my usual costume. I'm usually, as he's usually Batman, I'm usually Robin, but in this instance, it was.
Dave, I'm usually Robin's Donuts. That's what you meant.
That is a good point. Yeah, good point.
There you go.
Anyways,
let's talk about the forward lines. We know that Connor, Dubois, and Svechnikov were together for this game, and we know that they were impressive. And we talked about their performance, particularly in that opening shift in the first period. Andrew Kopp, Paul Stastny, Nikolai Ehlers, they stayed together as well. I didn't find them to be as impactful and as they had been in some of the previous games. Nikolai Ehlers, I thought this was a bit of a quiet night for him. I mean, even when he has a quiet night, there's certainly times where he can take control of a shift, but I didn't get the feeling that this is one of their better games. And then Lowry, Scheifele, and Wheeler, that was the line that sort of captured a lot of the attention. Scheifele and Wheeler back together in the lineup after their COVID protocol issues. What did you guys think of the Lowry, Scheifele, Wheeler line?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I'll just jump in here first, Dave. Like, I mean, I thought they were okay. Like, I didn't think, they were, dominant or anything like that. But I just wonder, like, are you going to keep that line going? Just because the reason why I say that is because, first off, you have Lowry, not playing up the middle, which is, very bizarre. You just don't see that very often, right? And you just know that, like, Scheifele and Lowry, that's just not a permanent solution. But for a game in which, Scheifele's coming in, he hasn't played in, 2 weeks or around 2 weeks. I thought he was really strong. And, he obviously, factored in on one of the goals. Was it the third goal that he factored in on? Yeah, it was the third goal, Pierre-Luc Dubois' goal. He picked up the primary assist. So, I mean,
the power play goal.
Yeah, I mean, Scheifele, exactly. And Wheeler was out there. This is his second game back. So, like, these guys are looking fine out there. It's not like, they come back and you're worried that, I mean, these guys are veterans. They've played so many games in the NHL. So, I mean, Scheifele looked good. He was moving. He was using his speed. I mean, I have no complaints about Scheifele's game. I have no complaints about, Wheeler or Lowry's game. That's just kind of, what was kind of going through my mind, that this is probably going to be, a one-off. And I think you guys would agree that, the most logical, scenario would be that, Stastny goes back down to that third line. And then, we might see the Lowry, Wheeler, Stastny veteran third line that we talked about. So that's kind of what I'm curious to see. But it's just good for the Jets to get Scheifele back. It was just weird. You're just used to seeing, Scheifele up the middle for the Jets. Like, he doesn't miss a lot of hockey games. Maybe, not so much in the playoffs. I mean, that doesn't apply. Obviously, that's a bit of a low blow there to Scheif. But
it was a little bit of a low blow.
They were fine. And I mean, he was out there in overtime. And at the end of the day, guys, I mean, it's his first game back. He scores the shootout winner. So, I mean, how hard on him can you possibly be?
Sure. So, I mean, it's probably safe to assume, obviously, that Hellebuck should be back for Friday's game. After him and his wife had their first child today. So, congratulations to them both. Of
Do we
course,
know
to
if
the
it's a
great
boy or a
addition.
girl?
Boy,
It's a boy. It's a baby boy. So congratulations to them on having a baby boy and adding to the family. And a totally legitimate reason to miss tonight's game, of course. But you'd expect him to be back on Friday, which means that, of course, Mikkel Burden, who was called up on an emergency basis, will go back to the Manitoba Moose, and that I would assume you're going to see Christian Vesalainen come back up.
Yeah.
When with the swap in between the AHL and the NHL, and the question becomes one of then, does Vesalainen come back in the lineup? Is it Riley Nash who comes into the lineup? Do they maybe both come into the lineup and somebody else come out of the lineup? Jansen Harkins, I thouk had a bit of a rough night tonight. I mean, obviously he's going to be on the highlight reels for all the wrong reasons on the John Klingberg goal. But even despite that, I thought he wasn't as noticeable as you might want. Or the Jets going to keep running with this 11-7 for another game. Somebody in the comment section said, they're undefeated running 11-7, and Nate Beaulieu actually had a pretty decent game. He got an assist in his.
Well, it's not that they're undefeated; they have points.
Sorry, they're not undefeated, right? So that's right. They have a point streak going 11-7.
Fact checker Daniel Dale David Minuk.
That was funny. Ezzy. There's options obviously that Paul Maurice has at his disposal, and he's usually reticent to change things up if they're working pretty well. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen. They obviously have these 2 days of practice, or I think tomorrow's actually an off day.
Tomorrow's an off day.
Yeah,
Tomorrow's
so they have a practice on Thursday to get everything, sort of the way they want to run. They have a Friday game against a not very good Chicago Blackhawks team, to be perfectly blunt, and then you have a much stiffer test coming up on Saturday night.
Off the ice, by the way.
Both, they're not very good, but and then Saturday night's test against the New York Islanders is obviously a much you're going up in weight class compared to the Friday night game. So I'm curious to see what Paul Maurice is going to do. I mean, I would agree with you, Ezzy, that I think Kopp, Scheifele, and Ehlers should be a very successful line, and so should Lowry, Stastny, and Wheeler. That should be a successful line.
I want to see it. Let's
honest.
Go. Let's do it. I mean, it's just a matter of time, so why not do it Friday, Saturday? And I honestly, Drew, think it's an interesting point you bring up, right? Because we brought this up, I believe, before last season about that notion of 7-11, and I think we were talking about it in reference to the Toronto Maple Leafs, if I'm not mistaken, and how they were going to try to replicate what the Lightning had done.
And we talked about it with maybe the Jets using Sami Niku as a seventh defenseman, and obviously
Nate Beaulieu is the new Niku, Drew.
Yeah, that's right. There's so many similarities between Sami Niku's game and Nate Beaulieu's game.
Well, I think though that we obviously we'll have to wait and see what happens here, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did go with 7 defensemen. I wouldn't be surprised if they go with 6 defensemen, because obviously that's what we're used to seeing in previous, incarnations of the Jets. This year has obviously, been a different year with Scheifele and Wheeler being out of the lineup with COVID. But the reason why I say that, guys, is it's just because of the back-to-back, right? And you want to make sure that, you don't necessarily, run some of your defensemen too close to 30 minutes. So, or maybe they do 7-11, for one of the games, probably the second game of the back-to-back, if they were to, not do it for 2 consecutive games. But, my kind of guess would be that, you're going to see, as you said, Christian Vesalainen recalled, and then, you probably go back to, the 12 forwards and 6 defensemen now that Scheifele and Wheeler are back in the lineup. But, that the notion of Wheeler, Lowry, and Stastny being your third line, I mean, that could easily be, the best third line in the league when you consider, guys, that both Stastny and Wheeler have played on the top line, right? So you've got guys that, even though, at this stage in their career on a team like the Jets, there's better players, that can play in the top 6. I think if you're able to have those guys on the third line, it'd be pretty incredible. So that's definitely something that we'll watch out for. And, we're going to see Comrie, for the third time in the last 4 games, right? Pretty incredible. Or third time in the last 5 games. I forget if it's, he's played 2 of the last 3, right?
Yeah.
Or 2 of the last 4. So it'd
be 3. 3.
3 and 5, right? So we didn't expect to see Comrie this much, but when you've got a new father in Connor Hellebuck, and you've got the second game of a back-to-back, I don't think anybody's expecting Hellebuck to play both games. So I think we all expect Hellebuck to play against Chicago, and then Comrie will get the Islanders on Saturday.
that's usually how it works. The backup goaltender tends to end up getting the second half of the back-to-back, even if he would be, even if that's the quote-unquote more difficult of the game. Usually you keep Hellebuck, or the starter gets the first game of a back-to-back situation based on generally accepted protocols. You look at the time on ice. You mentioned it, Ezzy. I mean, the Jets didn't run anybody too hard tonight. The leader in time on ice was Josh Morrissey at 22:52. Kyle Connor right behind him at 22:51. Josh Morrissey, I thought, played a whale of a game.
It's a beast.
Obviously,
beast.
the power play goal, which look, I think Josh Morrissey's shot was always a little underrated, but it seems like he's got an extra little blast behind it so far this year. That was his third of the season already, and
3 power play goals for him, by the way.
That's right. And he very nearly had his fourth in overtime, where he had a very nice move to get, right in front of Ben Bishop and then just slid it off the post, and they were unable to capitalize on the rebound there. But, Josh Morrissey playing very good hockey for the Winnipeg Jets on the back end. I thought Nate Schmidt was good. I mean, there weren't a ton of guys that you would say really were poor for the Winnipeg Jets tonight, I thought. And, to some extent, obviously that's a positive, because the more players playing well, the better. But at the same time, you also are a little bit dismayed that with most of their team clicking, they weren't able to get the 2 points in regulation. But I think that's just a function of maybe continuing to learn how to really keep an opponent down. And I think every year, no matter how veteran the team is, that's always a bit of a learning curve, especially relatively early in the season. If these kind of issues were bubbling up, in game 40 or game 50, that's probably more of a factor. But here, game 9 tonight, they'll learn, I think, from letting Dallas back in it and not getting the clean 2 points. I think they'll learn from that.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing we've kind of talked about actually earlier on in this season, is the fact that when they've earned wins, they have been in regulation. So that's kind of the one thing. And you're right, you're not going to be perfect every game of the season. And if you come out of it with 2 points, that's obviously better than coming out with 1 or 0, especially against.
That's why you come here, for that kind of insight.
That's the insight we get on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, post-game show. Sorry,
hockey show too.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, that's a good point, Drew. No, I mean, look, I think. Other thing I should mention that folks may not have seen because it happened during a commercial timeout was the fans gave Nate Beaulieu a big round of applause for his 400th, playing in his 400th career game, which he did on the road. And, clearly he is a fan and team favorite. Evgeny Svechnikov was sitting beside him, gave his helmet like a big rub when it was happening. He got a big smile out of him and got the crowd kind of amped up. That's one of the things you sometimes don't see, of course, at home during the commercial breaks. But I think it's, Drew, it's a function of this team having to adjust, right? I mean, you're sitting here watching Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler play on the third line with Adam Lowry as a winger. I mean, as he said, it's just weird seeing Adam Lowry not up the middle. So I think that's one of those adjustments that you're going to have to factor in. Like I said, what this team, the benefit of all of this early season adversity for this Winnipeg Jets team, and they haven't looked great, and they've gotten wins against teams that have been not great. Now, people, let's look around the NHL. Aside from Florida, right? Yeah. There are really probably like Carolina. 3 or 4 teams that have been elite, but the rest of the league hasn't looked that way. So when everybody's like, well, just wait till the Jets go up against someone good. Okay, show me someone who's really good. There aren't that many teams that right now qualify, right? So I think it's maybe Buffalo, but I think it becomes a function of this team having to learn what it needs to do to win. But like I said, the benefit of the early season adversity without Scheifele, without Wheeler, is it's forced Paul Maurice to become reliant on other things and learn other things about his team. And like we've talked about ad nauseum now, is the benefit to Pierre-Luc Dubois stepping up his game, Kyle Connor stepping up his game, Andrew Kopp stepping up his game, and also Josh Morrissey stepping up his game, I think. And I really think and I know obviously everything he was dealing with last year, and I'm not going to minimize that because I couldn't even imagine what he was going through, but he just is like a player who's reborn. And it's just a testament to how hard he's worked. And you can see it, right? I mean, like his career high in goals, I think, is 7, and he's already got 3 in the first 9 games. And I know it's not all about goals with defensemen, but and Nate Schmidt too. Nate Schmidt has 8 assists in 9 games for the Jets. He had 15 points in like 56 for the Canucks last year.
Sure.
So when you're getting that sort of production from these guys, and the Jets are getting that production from the back end, the Brendan Dillon, Neil Pionk pairing still seems to be a bit of a work in progress for me.
Yeah, both of them. I know plus minus isn't a relevant stat, but they were both -2 on tonight's game, and they weren't fantastic, I would say, by any stretch of the
I didn't
imagination.
think Pionk had a particularly good game tonight. Maybe that shot to the head he took knocked him a little bit askew, but like I said, I think you give it latitude, right? Like you're winning the game still, so you have a little more time, a little more runway. No pun intended, to give these guys to see how they continue to develop. Because like I said, we're 9 games in. Yeah. We said, that 10 to 15 mark is really where you're going to start to judge these things. But the one thing with the Jets defense, I just want to say, is they have had that sort of length of time now to see these pairs. I mean, look at how stable this has been. 9 games, you've had these pairs. I mean, obviously, Beaulieu playing as a 7th defenseman has thrown it off a little bit. But you really have enough to start to judge. Like I said, add 2-3 more games, and you're going to be able to say, okay, this is what we look like. Now, do you need to adjust things?
Well, it's funny in the chat as people were sort of writing off or not writing off. They were mentioning all the teams that are playing well, in addition to Carolina.
I thought you were going to say that people are writing us off. I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. I wrote us off a long time ago.
Yeah, we've been written off a long time ago. But people were mentioning that Florida. Dave and I said Florida and Carolina are playing well, and then other people mentioned a whole bunch of other teams. Edmonton, Calgary. I mean, who else did I see mentioned there? I mean, some of the Washington. I mean, the truth is the Jets are right with those teams are. The Jets have 12 points on the season. All these teams have 13 points, or in Edmonton, they have 14 points.
Season. Let's just simmer down a little bit. There's lots of hockey to be played.
Of course,
I don't think we can start, getting too excited about, how, Buffalo or Edmonton or the Jets for that matter. Look at the Jets. Jim Toth said it on the Saturday show. Like Jim said, I had the Jets as a top 10 team at the beginning of the season, and the Jets are a top 10 team right now, right? And they probably will be for the whole season. Like, we said this, in the first week of the season. There's a lot of similarities between, that 2017-18 or 2018-19 Jets team and this team, right? Like, I'm not saying that the Jets are going to have 114 points like they did that year, but like Dave mentioned it, like aside from, 2 or 3 teams, I mean, Tampa Bay is always going to be, as long as they're, 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions, they're always going to be considered an elite team. But like, you're actually going to tell me that the Jets are scared up to go against any team? Like the Jets are obviously going to get up to play, Colorado when they play them for the first time in January and teams like that. Right. But like on any given night, the Jets will be able to beat any team. Like the Jets are just, too talented. Look at what they've done without, Scheifele and Wheeler in the lineup. And even though the Jets have had a pretty soft schedule to start, right? Like not a lot of back-to-backs, and, you haven't played a lot of elite teams. Like you've played the Ducks a lot, you've played the Sharks a lot. Like, the Jets really haven't faced any team that you would consider an upper echelon team, but they've still won these games despite, not having Scheifele and Wheeler in the lineup, or, not having Hellebuck in the lineup, right? Like just imagine if the Jets would have dropped this game, guys, everybody would have been pointing the finger to Comrie, whether that was right or not. Comrie played really well tonight. And, we went back and looked at all these goals, like the Klingberg goal, didn't see. The second goal that was scored, I mean, that was just garbage. Right?
How many whacks did you get?
Comrie did his job there. Like, I mean, if you give a team 4 or 5 whacks at the puck on the power play, they're eventually going to score. So Comrie was really, really solid tonight. So, Jets, if you want to look at it kind of at a macro level, the Jets through the first 9 games, they've done pretty well here when you consider
in the face of some adversity.
Exactly. 5-2-2 is a pretty good record. And what are you, one back of St. Louis now, or you're tied with St. Louis for tops in your division? So like, let's just it's kind of reality check time here that we're still very early in this 21-22 season.
The voice of reason, Ezra Ginsburg.
Wow.
On this Tuesday morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Yeah, Tuesday night on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, not morning. I'll get the hang of whatever time it is. Let's take
Drew, that was on the West Coast when we were always.
That's right. I'm not used to games starting at a reasonable hour, Dave.
Yeah, exactly.
Ask Marsh. West Coast is the best coast, right?
I'm not
Cali
used
love?
to games start. I'm not used to games starting at 7:00. It seems like all the games have either been at like 9:00 this year, or 9:30, or 6:00. Saturday night start. So I think this is the second 7:00 start, or maybe the third at this point in time. But it certainly seems like these have been few and far between through the first 9 games of the season. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the power play alignment, because that was different for tonight's game. We'll talk briefly about the press conference from earlier today. Much more to come. The Winnipeg Jets victors tonight 4-3 over the Dallas Stars in a shootout. Stick with us. This is the Illegal Curve post-game show. We're live on our YouTube channel. We're live on all of our social media platforms. Prizes. We have prizes to give away too.
Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the biggest acts and all the up-and-comers. They've all made their mark at Rumors Comedy Club, North America's longest-running independent comedy club. Rumors has kept Winnipeg laughing for over 25 years. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party, even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Whoa, Ezzy, why are you so happy?
I just crushed 2 fresh Bagel Smith bagels with schmear. They're open on Jets home game nights until puck drop.
Didn't you have Bagel Smith for lunch too?
Yes, I did. What's your point?
Come on, Bagel Boy, let's go to the game.
Bagel Smith is Winnipeg's first and only Montreal-style bagel shop located at 185 Carlton Street. Visit bagelsmith.ca.
He winds up. Oh! Looks like Ezzy took that one right in the choppers.
A blistering fast puck hurts like HE double hockey sticks. That's why I let the pros at Linden Market Dental Center turn my yow into
wow.
Get your brilliant smile back with state-of-the-art restorative and cosmetic dentistry from real pros.
And remember, always wear a mouth guard.
Now that's solid on ice advice. Learn more at lindenmarketdentalcenter.com. Creating smiles for life.
Boston Pizza, the perfect place for a drink. Or the new pickle pizza. Across from this guy, who's getting his fill of some classic cactus cut nachos. Next to some hockey fans that just saw a nasty OT winner. Boston Pizza. Enjoy some... What? Look at that guy. Just having a soak, eh? You do you. Enjoy some old fall favorites and some new ones, however you
Dave
like,
M.
at Boston Pizza.
For 3 generations and over 80 years, Tough Duck has been making apparel that works and plays as hard as the people who wear it. From jackets to work boots and everything in between, Tough Duck's clothing can handle the harshest environments, even the Illegal Curve hockey show. Work to live, live to play. Visit toughduck.com. 15 minutes before the top of the hour. Welcome back to the Illegal Curve post-game show with Dave Manouk, with Ezra Ginsburg. I am your host, Drew Mindell, talking about the Winnipeg Jets defeating the Dallas Stars by a 4-3 margin. They win the game in a shootout after being up 3-1 in the third period. Overtime solved nothing. It took goals from Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele in the shootout to defeat the Stars. 2 very dirty dangles. Hell for a goaltender must be trying to figure out what Kyle Connor is going to do, because he's got some of the best hands absolutely in the NHL. And Braden Holtby has seen everything. He's been around the NHL. He's a Stanley Cup winner, but he just looked like, a man against a boy in trying to figure out where Kyle Connor was going to go with that shootout winner, the opening goal in the shootout that the Jets ended up winning 2-1, 4-3, the margin of victory on the night overall. Ezzy, we're giving away some prizes. You got some winners for us, winners that are going to get bagels from our friends at Bagel Smith. Remember, Bagel Smith is open till puck drop every Winnipeg Jets home game. So on your way to the rink, or if you're not going to the game and you need some bagels on your way home, be sure to check out our friends at Bagel Smith, located on Carlton Avenue, downtown, Carlton Street. It's not an avenue, it's a street. And Tough Duck, the hardest hitting comment, gets some gear, or gets a toque from our friends at Tough Duck. Ezzy, what are you going to give away?
Okay, we'll do Tough Duck here first, Drew. I made sure to copy and paste the comment here, because I think after a certain amount of comments, I can't scroll up anymore. So the Tough Duck hardest hitting comment winner is, and hopefully he's here. That's the only kind of issue that we've had. A few people have won, but they didn't know that they won. So hopefully he is still here. We're going to give it to Neil Terrio. The comment drew was at 10:32. If you're able to go back that far and pop that one on. 81 in OT, looks like an NHLer among beer leaguers. Unbelievable skater and puck handling skills. So I like that one. That's the hardest hitting comment for tonight's Jets post-game show. So he's going to win a Tough Duck toque. So just send me an email, ezra@illegalcurve.com, and they will send your toque out. And hopefully, is CMAC here? Because CMAC won the Bagelsmith from Saturday night's game, I believe. And he was asking earlier. So CMAC, send me an email, I guess, with your real name, and head down to Bagelsmith, 185 Carlton Street, and get half a dozen bagels. And we are going to give Alistair Clark, we're going to give him 6 Bagelsmith bagels. So just go down to Bagelsmith again, 185 Carlton. Just give him your name and then pick up some delicious bagels on behalf of IC.
There you go. So if you have heard your name in Ezzy's little speech there, send him an email, ezra@illegalcurve.com, or you can always tweet at him at ICEzzyG, and he will hook you up with your prize. Of course, courtesy our friends from Tough Duck, courtesy our friends. There it is. There's Alistair Clark. He says, no way. Thank you. Send Ezzy an email. He'll hook you up with the prize. Congratulations to all of our winners. We'll do giveaways after each and every post-game show, so stay tuned for more of those. Friday night, we'll do some after the post-game show between the Jets and the Chicago Blackhawks, and then Saturday night again after the game between the Jets and the New York Islanders. So that's a great reason to stay tuned here to the Illegal Curve post-game show. Giveaways courtesy of our friends at Tough Duck and Bagelsmith, and Dave Manouk on occasion has some Manitoba Moose tickets to give away, so always stay with us here.
Moose are on the road though, people. The Moose are on the road. They're leaving for 6 games on the road. So I won't have any Moose tickets to give away for a little while. They're back on the 18th. Although I don't think I have a game. I don't think I have tickets until the end of the month, but I'll have some Moose tickets, 4 pairs. T. Conapoli, by the way.
I was going to say, here's T. Conapoli. He went to the Moose game on courtesy Illegal Curve was that Saturday's game or Sunday's game?
Sunday. His birthday, though, was T. Conapoli's birthday for everybody in the chat was on Saturday, 55th birthday. So wish him a happy birthday.
And what was on the Jumbotron at the Moose game?
T. Conapoli got an Illegal Curve shout out on the Jumbotron. We know some people in the Moose, so we got T. Conapoli. Although T. Conapoli missed it, he was out schmoozing in the concourse, so he missed the birthday shout out.
He was probably having a beverage or a Jets dog or something.
Yeah, something. So I mean, I sent it to him. He still got a chance to see it. But no,
happy birthday, T. Conapoli. And just so you know, T. Conapoli, you got the Dave Manouk red carpet treatment. Like, not everybody gets that. Like those extra, like getting your name on the, the Jumbotron and everything like that. So obviously you have reached legend status in Dave M's mind.
I had to ask Cole Perfetti in between the second and third period. I'm like, listen, you guys are losing. Can you at least score a goal, do something? Because I mean, I got some pressure on me. I want these guys to enjoy the game. So he looked at me, he goes, how did you get down here? And then,
who are you and what are you doing here? The two questions asked most often about anything Illegal Curve related.
But he did score a goal, assisted by David Gustafson and Johnny Kovacevic. It was actually a trifecta of Jets prospects. Speaking of Jets prospects,
here we go. Do you actually have something, or you just?
I do actually have something. Dylan Sandberg, who has been out since day one of the training camp with a high ankle sprain, was back on the ice in a non-contact jersey, skating with the Jets because, of course, he's still with the Jets. So Dylan Sandberg, they originally gave him a 6 to 8 week window. I think it was September 24th. So he seems to be, he's on pace for that to get back. I mean, he probably won't be on the road with the Moose, but he'll maybe be ready to go when the Moose come back to town. And if he plays, it would literally, although Ville Heinola is injured, although Mark Morrison, the head coach of the Moose, told me that he expects Heinola to be able to play this weekend when they go on the road. So literally every Jets draft pick will be populating the defense for the Manitoba Moose, including Kovacevic, Heinola, Sandberg, Chisholm, Gavanke, and Lindmark. So it's a lot of Jets prospects. If you want to come watch, the forwards not as many. There's only 2 or 3, but defense, there's a lot of prospects.
Boys, what are the chances that we see 10 forwards and 8 defensemen? We see Dylan Sandberg on the back end for the Jets on Friday night.
Not very good, I would suggest on that note. But that was this post-game show edition of Moose Droppings with Dave Manook, giving us the latest on the Manitoba Moose.
I don't like that name, but I like the idea. Well, we're gonna have to workshop that. I don't think Moose Droppings really works.
Okay, well, you'll think of a different name instead. Let's talk quickly about the power play units, because those were new for the Winnipeg Jets tonight as well. If you want to say power play one, Wheeler, Scheifele, Pierre-Luc Dubois, with the 2 defensemen, with Josh Morrissey and Nate Schmidt. So we're so used to seeing 1D and 4 forwards for the Winnipeg Jets, on their primary power play unit, whatever you want to call the power play unit. Today it was Morrissey and Schmidt together on a unit, and then the second unit had 1D and 4 forwards. The defensemen being Neil Pionk, along with Ehlers, Kopp, Stasny, and Kyle Connor. I thought I thought the power play units, they only got the 1 goal, but I thought they moved the puck pretty well. I thought that they had pretty good zone time. I liked what I saw from the power play units, albeit only in the one game and the sort of limited opportunity that they did have.
Yeah, you're right, Drew. We haven't seen a lot of, to the old school. It's crazy that it's old school, because 5 or 6 years ago, a lot of teams were still doing it, but it seems like in the last 2 or 3 years, not many teams use 2 defensemen, on the back end. Or 2 defensemen on the back end, 2 defensemen on the power play. So yeah, I mean, they scored 2 power play goals tonight. So obviously, it was pretty good, but I go back to Pierre-Luc Dubois, and he just wasn't a big factor on the power play for the Jets last year. I mean, like, when you're talking about Scheifele, Wheeler, Connor, Ehlers, Pionk, I mean, that those guys are going to factor in big time on the power play. But now you throw in Pierre-Luc Dubois, and yes, we go back to what we said before. Let's, hold your horses. It's only 9 games into the season, and the Jets haven't played some of the big boys, of the NHL yet. But you still have to like what you're seeing, from Dubois. It's just making, 2 dangerous power play units even more dangerous, right? So I like the look of it, and I agree with Dave. Like, you guys know, like, I've loved Morrissey since he's come into this organization, right? And I just think having a more dangerous and confident Josh Morrissey again. Like, you think about it, right? And kind of Neil Pionk was, overshadowing him a little bit last year. Let's be honest, right? And like, all due respect to and props to Pionk. Like, he had a fantastic offensive season. And even though, tonight's game, he might have been not his best game, but, he's still, the team's best offensive defenseman. I think we'd agree with that. And I'm with Dave. Like, if you're able to get, 10 to 15 goals from Morrissey this year, I mean, that would just, again, like, the Jets, we expect to be a top 10 team in the league, maybe even top 5. But when you have some of these defensemen that are just, showing more and more confidence. So I liked what I saw out there. Like, even Wheeler, again, he gets criticized a lot and he missed some hockey, but, there he was, back on the power play looking very confident. And so, I mean, I think, we all expected the Jets power play to be good. So it doesn't really matter to me who you put out there. Like, I'm serious. Like, you could basically take the 10 players that are on the 2 power play units, and you could put any one of them on either of the units, and I think they would probably have just as much success.
Well, what I want to see, I don't think we saw as much of the quote unquote second unit tonight, but any power play unit that is going to have both Kyle Connor and Nikolai Ehlers on it, that's going to be a pick your poison. I mean, both those guys, are just going to be, have opportunity galore, Dave, to really just, really probably capitalize on power play opportunities. Not that the first unit is anything to sneeze at itself, with guys like Scheifele and Dubois, and Wheeler is still an effective power play presence. Pardon the alliteration, as he said earlier. It's a plethora of riches for the Winnipeg Jets, I would say, Mr. Manook.
Yeah, an embarrassment of riches, if you will, Drew. Kind of like, all the good analysis people get on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. There's just an embarrassment of riches when Ezzy and I are speaking. So anyways, a
knife in my heart, twisted in. This is what I get from you.
Oh, well, I mean, you abandoned Ezzy and I on Saturday's show, so we're a little bit hurt. You ditched us. So anyways, I think you're right. I think like I said, I think it's been such a blessing in disguise for this Jets team to be able to see these guys take their games to the next level without Mark Scheifele, without Blake Wheeler, and see that you don't need to be reliant only on them to have success. And, like I said, Kyle Connor, Ezzy and I were just amazed. And it's hard to be amazed by guys that you watch so often. It's not that you take them for granted, but you know what to expect. And we all kind of thought we knew what to expect with Kyle Connor, right?
It's like he has rocket skates.
No, I mean, honestly,
like it really looks like he's like skating, 10 to 20 kilometers an hour faster than everybody else on the ice. And that includes Ehlers. Like he really was looking like that today, Dave. And I think, sorry to, kind of steal your thunder here, but I think, the emergence of Connor and Dubois specifically as a pair, because you can see it at times, like they have that ability to find each other now, kind of, regardless if it's in like a cycle situation or, they're just, entering the zone, like that. To me, not only is their individual play impressive, but the emergence of them as a duo, right? Because you're used to it being Scheifele and Connor, or, you're used to it being Lowry and Kopp, or, Dubois and Ehlers, but now Dubois and Connor, like, if you're Paul Maurice, you just can't separate those guys because they're so dominant at 5-on-5, right? Like that was the big criticism, going into this year, is that the Jets had to be better at even strength. Like obviously, suppressing shots and all that, playing better in your own zone. We knew they would be better just by getting Schmidt and Dillon, into their lineup. But Connor and Dubois together, it's just it's like they have the just the ability to make incredible plays. So you're right, Dave. Like Connor just. Even though we've watched him year after year, tonight was one of those games where you could probably say he was the best forward on either team.
Yeah. And like I said, that to me has been such a benefit for this Jets team, is to see a guy who you expected to have a high level of success, take his game to that next level. And if you're going to get, 40 to 50 goals out of Kyle Connor instead of 30 to 40, what is that going to do for your team? What is that going to do in terms of wins? What's that going to do for the success of Pierre-Luc Dubois? Pierre-Luc Dubois' career high is 27 goals, right? Like I said. So, if Pierre-Luc Dubois hits 30 to 40, I'm not saying he's going to continue his pace, but they're not really slowing down, right? It's not as if there's been any stop to the game. I think there's been some hiccups in the games, but he seemed to have bounced back and seemed to have played well in all the subsequent contests. So to me, I agree. I just don't see, I've been saying it now for 5 games. I don't see, I think Evgeny Svechnikov also complements them nicely. I think his puck retrieval has been good. I think his defensive play has been good. So I still don't see that line breaking up in anytime soon, but I don't see that pairing breaking up. I really don't. I know that Scheifele and Wheeler love to play with Kyle Connor. It makes sense. He's an amazing player. Most people would want to play with him. But now, based on what he's done, and like I said, I this started with a comment about what Ezzy and I were thinking about when we were watching OT. And I said, I looked at it, I was like, this is crazy. This guy's playing like he hasn't played a 60-minute hockey game and been one of the best players out there. And it truly is incredible. And like I said, Saturday show, I think, he had mentioned that he knew he needed to get to another level. Guys say that all the time. I remember I was once talking to Brendan Lemieux at the Iceplex, and he said, "Oh, bigger, faster, stronger." We were just talking. It wasn't like a media thing. And he joked. He said, "Well, everybody says that," and it's true, right? Like every person's thing, the standard line, "Oh, bigger, faster, stronger." We get that. That's what did you do over the summer? Bigger, faster, stronger. It's like okay, we get it. But he really seemed to have embraced it because, like I said, you're taking a guy who what to expect. And that was already a high level of expectation, and taken to that next level.
Well said, Mr. Manuk. Let's leave it there for tonight's post-game show. Before you all go, we do want to say a big thank you to our sponsors because they make this show possible. Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Linden Market Dental Center, Bernstein's Deli, Zappia Group Realty, Boston Pizza, our friends at Bagelsmith, our friends at Tough Duck, our friends at Seagram's. Support all of these fine businesses because they support Illegal Curve Hockey and they make this show possible. If you or anyone you know are interested in becoming a sponsor of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show or the Illegal Curve Post-Game Show, we have some great advertising packages available. Simply send one of us an email or send an email to advertise@illegalcurve.com and we'll get you hooked up to join our great roster of sponsors for this fine show. big congratulations to everybody who won prizes from Bagel Smith and Tough Duck earlier today. If you heard your name previously, haven't yet done so, get in touch with Ezra Ginsburg, Ezra@illegalcurve.com, @ICEZEG on Twitter. We remind you, for the latest Winnipeg Jets news, for the latest Manitoba Moose news, you can check out our website, illegalcurve.com. Friday night, the post-game show following the Jets and the Blackhawks, back here right around 9:45 p.m., give or take a couple minutes on either side. We'll be back with that. Saturday morning, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, 9 a.m., back here talking about everything that happened on Friday night, everything that happened this week for the Winnipeg Jets. And then later, Saturday night, following the Jets and the Islanders, the Illegal Curve post-game show. So as you can see, between Friday night and Saturday night, you're going to get a lot of us here at Illegal Curve. Thanks so much for everyone joining us on this Tuesday night. On your way out, if you haven't yet done so, smash the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, get alerted each and every time we go live. Don't miss a minute of anything Illegal Curve related. One final reminder, of course, the Illegal Curve merchandise, the Illegal Curve store is now available and now open. You can get to it through our website, illegalcurve.com. Hit the merchandise link and you'll find the latest Illegal Curve gear. Buy now so you don't miss out. For Mr. Dave Manouk in the top right, for Ezra Ginsburg in the bottom middle, I am your host, Drew Mindell. Thanks so much for joining us until Friday night following the Jets and the Blackhawks. We wish you a good night and good luck.